Da, 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 da.
Welcome to the Fast Break Podcast, and we're your hosts, Ari Betterly, Ryan Costello, and Sam Elster for the Hoosier Network. And it is March, and as you know it, they're singing the theme song to a lot of sporting events that are going to be happening in the next month and a half here. But super excited to break things down with you today. So much to talk about. We finally reached the pinnacle of sports. March Madness and the Big
Yes.
Ten tournament is this week for women's basketball. So a lot to talk about. But first of all, I just want to ask how you guys are doing today. How are you feeling about the tournament this week?
I'm excited. I'm excited to see these California teams, go to work, very, excited to see those because I feel like that's the most anticipated to see. But I'm excited to see some upsets too.
I'm really excited that the Big Ten tournament's back in Indy.
Yeah.
Don't have to travel far. And the crowd the last time it was here in 2022 was just amazing. So I'm really excited for what the crowd will be like tomorrow because it starts on Wednesday.
Yeah, and I'm like looking forward to it as so much as well. Just being, a women's basketball, broadcaster, I guess you could say. I feel like this is the pinnacle of something we've been waiting for all year. I mean, love the regular season, of course, but I think things just get so much more interesting when you put it in tournament terms. So we are breaking down a bracket later on today as a sneak peek to keep you watching. But first, we're going to do what we always do on the podcast, is just break down the most recent games for the Hoosiers. Now, there was two this past week, one against Maryland, one against Purdue, and then obviously the tournament this week. But let's start with Maryland. Someone want to take that?
I can take it off
Okay.
since I was there. Yeah. From the offset, Indiana just looked out tough. It felt like Maryland was grabbing all of those 50-50 balls. They're getting all the rebounds. And it was really a 14-2 run in the second quarter that just gave them the lead for the rest of the game. And Indiana got it close, but they never could really get it fully back where they wanted. And especially in the fourth quarter when Cheyenne Sellers had her fourth quarter of 21 points out of her 25. You can tell why she's going to be a WNBA draft pick come after the season's over.
Yeah, and I really liked the quotes you put in here about from Sellers saying she knew she had it won here and that it was really important to her, in that she also said Illinois spoiled her senior night and it was time to spoil somebody else's. Wow.
Yeah, you
Oh.
could tell she really meant that, especially after dropping 21 points in one quarter, which is absurd.
Lethal.
Crazy
you could say.
numbers.
I feel like that was the biggest takeover in a quarter I'd seen anyone, any opposing team, even including in Indiana at Assembly Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think obviously this team's just been getting better and better every single year, and I think this was the tip of the iceberg finally hitting, where things are just coming together for this Maryland team, and they're just shaping up to be kind of a powerhouse in the Big Ten now.
Yeah.
Yeah, any final thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, Terry Morin just questioned her team's desire and then the consistency, because this year they've been so up and down. And she said she thought at one point this season they were gonna find their way and be consistent, but this was just another indication of the kind of up and down season we've seen from the Hoosiers.
Right, and leading into that, we go to the Purdue game, and she kind of mentioned that there in that press conference as well, but we'll get into that in a second. But this was also another, not a necessarily big game because it doesn't really necessarily matter unless they lost, that we mentioned for them. But it was a big game, and, records. Chloe Moore McNeil played her 149th game as a Hoosier, a record in the history books. And then Yarden Garzone breaks the three-point record for her 2-3 she made, or 3-3 she made in the game, having now 208 total, which is crazy. And then it was also their 13th in a row win against Purdue. And that means Sydney Parrish and Chloe Moore McNeil has never seen a loss going against Purdue in their past 5 years playing for this Hoosier team. So those were some good takeaways just to start this off. But overall, this game, I think Indiana was dominant throughout the entire time, 22-2 run. They kept a steady 15 to 20 point lead throughout almost the entire game. There was a couple pushes there where Purdue looked like they were going to make a run going 9-0 at one point, and Chloe Moore McNeil having some foul trouble, kind of not able to be on the court as long as maybe we're used to. But besides that, I think the Hoosiers played a great caliber of basketball, and a lot of the bright spots in their gameplay was shown throughout this game, I think.
Yeah, even though, we kind of not expected, but, thought that Indiana was going to win, I feel like they really came out and, proved us right. I think that they were a little bit disappointed after the Maryland lost and played that way. So, I thought it was just a great all around performance.
Yeah, that first quarter really was key in that win. If they didn't have that, the rest of the way they were kind of even with Purdue. So that throwing that first punch was good, and I also think it was good to learn to play without Chloe Moore McNeil because you don't know coming into the postseason she might get in foul trouble or another player might get in foul trouble. So it's all about that next up mentality.
Yeah, and they even said that, I think, in the press conference where, or not Chloe Moore McNeil, but Terry Moore mentioned how we're going to need those guys off the bench. We don't know what their minutes are going to look like, but you need depth for a tournament when you're playing possibly 3 days in a row. We don't know, how far this tournament run will be for the Hoosiers, but just in case, you need to be prepared, that next man up mentality. And I think even there were some bright spots for Lily Meister and Henna Senvik, Jules Amendola just coming off the bench, getting some productive minutes in there, which they're going to need a lot this week. But any other thoughts of this game before we move on?
Yeah, like you said, Ari, with how Terry mentioned that in the press conference, I think that it was honestly not a good thing that Chloe was in foul trouble, but it would kind of gave those players on the bench to get those reps in that we haven't really seen that much because Terry doesn't go that much into the bench, and just getting their legs going, being on the court, especially before a long run in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
I agree. I'll wrap us up with this quote here. She said, we can't lose sight of the fact that when we put it all together, we can be really, really good in what we do. And I think that we can accomplish a lot. And she said that she was hoping going into the Big Ten tournament that we can get some momentum and we can stream together some really good days of basketball that we know that is in us. And I know that our guys and our team have that in them. So it'll be interesting to see if they can because, we've seen those bright spots in the season, and she's brought up those positive moments like the Nebraska win, the Ohio State win, the Stanford win. She also said there was times they should have won this season, like the Michigan game or the Oregon game. So, yeah, that was kind of the wrap on the regular season here, and they gave it a B-, but
She gave it a B, and then Sydney
There you go.
Parrish was minus.
yes.
And I think it was that consistency factor. I think Sydney Parrish, Chloe Moore McNeil, Yarden Garzone, those returning starters all probably expected a little bit better of a regular season, but that's why they invented a thing called a postseason. So then you can make yourself more happy and prove why you
Deserve a B instead of a B-.
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
All right. Well, it is now Big Ten tournament week, the thing we've been waiting for. I know we've been so excited. And again, we have our brackets right here to show you guys. And we're excited to share today. But let's just preview this first game. It's going to be very telling how the rest of their season's going to go. Sam, I'm going to give it to you to kick us off here, and we'll build on this big Oregon game coming up.
Yeah, so like Terry mentioned in the press conference, this is a spot that Indiana's not used to being in, not having the double bye, and this is their lowest seed since 2019 when they were the 10th seed back in 2019. But this is also an Oregon team that they can win against. Terry mentioned it also as one of those games that they should have won. It was a fourth quarter collapse that really fell apart for the Hoosiers, and especially with this being in Indy, it's a winnable game. But turnovers were an issue, and they're going to need to limit that. They've been a little bit better with them depending on the opponent, but it's something that they're really going to have to watch out for. And the Hoosiers also need to watch out for the Oregon forward, Ehis Utut. I think we struggled with her name last time. Also, she finished with 9 points and 8 rebounds in 16 minutes of the first matchup, and they're a much better better shooting team, so I think they're really going to need to use that to their advantage, using their ability to shoot from 3-point range, but also using the paint as well with Caroline Striplin and Lily Meister. And, they got to play a full and complete game. They didn't do that when they went to Oregon, and they got to do it now if they want to, keep the postseason hopes alive.
It's all about which team's going to show up. Is it going to be the team that played Ohio State that looked ready from the jump and didn't let them get fully back into the game at all? Or is it going to be the team that played Maryland and didn't look as inspired?
Yeah. And that's where we really have to decipher, even on our brackets, what what this team is going to be because we don't know. And that's the scary thing I think about this team this year is that the consistency makes you unsure. Like I want to say that they're going to be Oregon, but I genuinely am unsure.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
yeah.
And another scary
Yeah.
thing is that because you are the 9th seed, if you win the game, it doesn't get any easier. You have to play number 1 seed USC and Big Ten Player of the Year just a couple hours ago named Juju Watkins.
Yeah.
So,
And they've seen this before and it didn't go so well. I mean, hey, could have gone much worse, but it didn't go so well. But here's the thing. Here's the one glimpse of hope. We've mentioned this. This is in Indiana's home territory in Indianapolis, basically a home game to them. They're going to have the most fan support, I'm hypothesizing, if it's not Iowa. And I think they're going to hopefully bring that energy, like hunger, like they would for like that Ohio State game. But again, like you said, with Maryland, they're at home. It's their last home game senior night. They didn't bring that. So
it'll be, I think, like you said, I think the fans will be there. We saw when they made it to the Big Ten championship in 2022, that was full, like a sea of red. So I'd be surprised if they didn't have a big fan base there.
Yeah, especially since Purdue didn't make the tournament. You know, all the fans from Indiana, they're coming. They're probably rooting for the Hoosiers. So it'll be a good show out, I think.
yeah. And potentially, if they do play Juju Watkins and USC, what do you think that the Hoosiers are going to have to do to win? I mean, they play them quite literally the next day. They play back-to-back games. So they'll probably wrap up around 2 p.m. They beat Oregon on Wednesday. They'll play USC exactly 24 hours later. So what are they going to have to do?
I think they can't turn the ball over. That was the Achilles heel and what really hurt them in their game against USC back at Assembly Hall in January. The points off turnovers was what won the game for USC. So if they don't turn the ball over and they can shoot it well, then they might have a chance. But if they turn the ball over like they have this season, I don't know if they'll be able to get past USC.
Yeah. And I mean, Juju's had some pretty crazy performances recently, 30-point games where she's kind of done it all for USC. And Chloe Moore-McNeil did a great job defending her when they were in Assembly Hall. And I think that, the defense and containing Juju is going to be really big if they play them. And Chloe Moore-McNeil can't do it all by herself. So, players like Shea Chesky and Lexus Bargesser got to step up too. And, just not letting the game get too far away from them. They didn't do that when they were in Assembly Hall. So I think that if they just play their brand of basketball, they can keep it a close one.
I agree. And I think it's going to be super important, like you said, making sure on all fronts that every player's like playing to their best mentality, because we've seen games where Yarden Garzon's kind of stepped back and not shot the ball and not made a lot of threes. And she's super needed in a game like this. And same with Sydney Parrish if she's not hot, which she's been pretty consistent these past couple games. If she has a cold night, that's also another thing that would be an Achilles heel in my opinion. So everyone needs to play their absolute best, limit the turnovers, get their free throws, be defensive, be aggressive, and all the things we've seen in that Ohio State game. We've seen it.
I also think for the Big Ten tournament and maybe the postseason or the rest of the postseason, they need to have that focus on, because I think sometimes the whole team isn't focused or ready to play. I think if they can have their blinders on and just focus on the game in front of them, then they can go as far as they want. But it's all about that mentality, I feel like.
Yeah.
Totally agreed.
Yeah. Well, on a positive note, Indiana has received some awards before the tournament, which junior guard, obviously, Yarden Garzon was named the conference's second team from the coaches and the media votes. Then graduate senior guard Chloe Moore-McNeil was picked up as an honorable mention and nod from both polls. And then graduate student Sydney Parrish was named honorable mention by the media. What are your guys' thoughts about these? I know we kind of talked about our predictions for this as a hot topic last week, but any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, if the team had more success, these three players would probably get more mentions, but I think Chloe Moore-McNeil was a little bit snubbed on the defensive team. I think that she's been an outstanding defender all season round, and I think that, their not as successful season might have had a little bit of a play into that.
Yeah, I definitely think she was probably snubbed a little bit, but like you said, not winning some of those games against the top tier of the conference probably didn't help. But hey, go prove yourself. Be like, I should have been on this. Have a great Big Ten tournament.
I agree.
Then you can prove everybody wrong. But on a non-IU front, I feel like we were a little bit surprised that for co-freshman of the year, Kakomi McMiller wasn't
Yeah.
in that conversation because she just
No.
like took over when she came to
Yep.
Assembly Hall and a bunch of other venues in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But winning, you have to win games, so that doesn't help.
It seems like they made their decision based heavily on, the success of a team, which makes
Totally.
sense. And
Yeah.
like obviously you can have a star on a team, but if you're not winning, I guess it doesn't really matter. So
Yeah.
because in that case, like Juju Watkins is doing the opposite. She's scoring 30 points for her team and they're winning. They're getting important wins for this Big Ten tournament. So I think that's why. But I will say as well, I think, Ryan, you were a little disappointed not to see Silas Swords from Michigan.
She's not. Wait, but she is on the all freshman team. So
Okay.
there you go.
Okay.
She didn't go completely
Unnoticed.
snubbed.
Yeah.
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 So
I agree.
good for Sila.
She has 3 more years to show what she's got.
Yeah.
in the bag,
Exactly.
so.
Who knows? Maybe she'll be on first team or second team next year.
Maybe if she
Maybe.
plays like she did against Indiana in that fourth quarter
Probably then.
Yeah.
back in the
should
regular
be.
season. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
who knows? But are you guys ready to talk about your Big Ten tournament brackets?
Yes.
So this is our hot topics today?
Yes, it is.
is.
Who wants to go first?
I think,
I can go
Sam,
first.
go.
I got
Okay.
it. I got
You
it.
got it.
All right. So
Do you want to show the
starting-
camera first?
Starting off.
We need like a graphic.
Yeah, literally. Starting off.
Low
with
budget.
with the Minnesota and Washington game. I have Minnesota winning that game. Then Rutgers, Nebraska. I have Nebraska winning. Rutgers, great team with Kaiomi McMiller, but I just think Nebraska has more of an all-around talent. And game 3, Wisconsin versus Iowa. I have Iowa winning that game. I just think that this team has a lot of experience. I mean, they're coming off of, we were talking about this 3.
This is last year they won their third straight Big
Their
Ten
third
tournament.
straight Big Ten tournament. So I think that this team has a lot of experience, and they should not be losing in the first round.
Yeah.
If they do, that's a big upset. So good for Wisconsin if they do. And then going to Indiana, Oregon, I think Indiana comes out with a win first round for this game. Minnesota versus Michigan, I then have Michigan winning that game. I think, Silas Swords and the Michigan Wolverines are really going to take over. Nebraska, Illinois, I have Illinois winning that one. Iowa, Michigan State. This is where my bracket kind of gets into the upsets. I think Iowa's going to make a big trip in the Big Ten tournament. Like I said, experience and all of that. Third round, IU versus USC. That's where I sadly think that the Hoosiers' Big Ten tournament hopes are going to end with USC winning. Then Michigan versus Maryland winning that matchup. Illinois versus UCLA winning. And then Iowa versus Ohio State. I have Iowa taking that game. They took it to overtime in the regular season, so, anything can happen in March. So I have them making a little bit of a run. But then Iowa's journey then ends against UCLA. And then USC versus Maryland. I have Maryland winning that game. Some upsets.
The Terrapins are hot though. I respect that pick.
Yes,
They're
I
hot.
do too.
They're hot, and I also I don't really want to see that much of a USC-UCLA 3-time matchup. I think that, switch it up a little
Make it
bit.
a little more interesting.
Make it more interesting, but then I have UCLA winning it all. I just think that their depth and success this season is really going to pay off.
I feel like that's a really good
Yeah,
bracket. I see
that's-
some good picks.
We almost have identical brackets,
Really?
Sam.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, talk about
Okay,
your differences.
I'll talk about my differences. So, I hypothesized very similarly to you. I love a good upset and I love a good deep run from a underdog team. I did the exact same thing with Iowa. I have them going all the way to the UCLA game and losing there. Pretty similar, but I do have Nebraska beating Illinois as an upset. But wait, no, I don't. I had Illinois. I don't know why I said that. Sorry, guys. I think I had another upset somewhere. I think my upset was I had Maryland beating USC. Just because they're playing with a lot of fire right now.
So you have Maryland, UCLA as your Big Ten championship
Yeah,
game?
and I honestly would love to see Maryland win it. I'd love to see one of the non-Western Coast teams win this, but I don't necessarily think that will happen. I do think it's a very high possibility that USC and UCLA will be in the championship.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be fun to see like Iowa or Maryland go. I do.
Yeah.
But
So-
otherwise, Sam,
Yeah.
we were
Is your
thinking
champion
alike.
also UCLA?
I'm going to be different. I'm going to say it's going to be Maryland.
Okay.
Boom. I'm
Love
going to
it.
say Maryland's taking it.
Hopefully.
I'll go with mine. Mine is also UCLA, but I have more upsets in the rounds before. So I have Indiana going all the way to the Big Ten championship.
Really? I like it. No, I
Wow.
like it.
I was being a little optimistic for the Hoosiers. I don't know if they'll be able to do it, but I think with the Indiana fan base being in Indianapolis and coach mentioning after the Purdue game that if they can put everything together, they're a tough team to beat. So I'm thinking, hey, they're in Indianapolis. It's the seniors.
Why not go on a run?
Exactly. Why not go
Totally.
on a run? So I think the Hoosiers could do it. So I'm gonna have them go to the Big Ten championship, and then I have Iowa getting upset in the first round. I'm
Wow.
gonna go with Wisconsin because I looked. They just played on the March 2nd, and it was like right there at halftime. So I think the Badgers might be a little bit pissed off that they let that one go, and they want to cause a little madness. So I have the Badgers winning. I also have Nebraska, and then I have Minnesota, and then I have Michigan.
Oh, I also had Minnesota. I forgot to say that. Yeah.
I have Michigan beating Minnesota,
Okay.
and then I have Nebraska losing to Illinois, and then Wisconsin losing to Michigan State. Michigan
Mhm.
State beating Ohio State. So my semifinals are IU, Maryland, UCLA, MSU. I'm gonna say IU gets the revenge from that upset on senior. Not
Yeah.
upset. Maryland was the ranked team from that hard loss to the Terrapins on the last home game, and I'm gonna have IU UCLA with UCLA winning.
I actually love that
I
bracket.
like that.
Oh,
I
thanks.
like the Indiana twist. I think
I like the madness in it.
Yeah,
It's fun. And
It's
I
fun.
you know, I feel like the OG, I guess, in the Big Ten, they don't want to see a California team coming up on top because
no.
or even the Washington or Oregon, but I feel like a lot of people are just talking about USC and UCLA, and I think they're all kind of sick of it. And I think
Rightfully
they
so,
wanna
because they
change it.
dominated. But I think the rest of the
Yeah.
teams are like, we've been here.
Yeah.
This is our conference. We
Yeah.
want to take it back. So
Totally.
I
maybe they
mean-
get some revenge.
I think that'd be something that's you don't keep out of the picture. I think a lot of these teams will be feisty to show what they're made of during the tournament. And like we always say, or not even we, everyone says, anything can happen in March.
Totally.
And
Exactly.
that happens every year through and through. You try to make your bracket, you try to predict the future, and you simply cannot because something always happens. I'm trying to think what happened that was super wild last year.
Ohio State was the 1 seed and lost to Maryland, who was the 8th
Yes.
seed. So
Wow.
it's happened last year. The 1 seed didn't make it past their first game. So who
Mhm.
knows if the Trojans will be able to do that this year.
And you know something I thought about when I was thinking about the football college playoff? How the teams who had a break and they all got to rest, they all lost.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll be all like a little gassed up, juiced up, some of these teams that are playing
Yeah.
multiple games and
Yeah.
will just go on a run. You never know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
especially coming from the West Coast. I mean, these California teams, they're playing at, well, I mean, USC is playing at noon for their first game. That's what, 9 a.m.
Yeah.
California time. So, it'll be interesting to see if that does play a factor because I remember that from the college football playoffs. That was a big thing. And I think maybe that could have a little role in here too.
Yeah. Some sea legs coming into Indiana,
Mhm.
ripe Indianapolis
Mhm.
for the California teams. But, so much can happen. We're looking forward to it. We're going to go cover the game on Wednesday and move on from there. And then, then there's tournament hopes. Do we think Indiana will make the tournament? And what seed do we think they're going to be?
I think they would be in with a loss, but they'd be like last teams in. I think a win against Oregon really solidifies it. And then any other wins you can get really help. But that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think last I checked the bracketology thing, they were 10 or 11.
Yeah.
So I think with a win against Oregon, and
You feel
even
safe.
I think that they would lock that in. I mean, if they then win against USC, I don't know, maybe they bump it up to like a 9 or an 8. But I think that they'll definitely be in the tournament. It just depends on what seed.
Also, Terry Morin even said during the press conference, now that I think about it, she was mentioning how, not all teams play in the Big Ten. It's a gauntlet of the teams, just the schedule, the new teams being added in, and so many ranked teams just in their conference. I think there's at least 4, 5 in the top 25 in the
Yeah.
entire country. So
Crazy.
I think you have to keep that in mind too when you're you're looking at some of these teams who might have been, fifth in the, like Indiana could have been much higher in previous years, but now they're lower due to new teams coming in. So it'll be interesting.
Next week we'll update you who had the best or most accurate bracket.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. Okay, well, this is going to wrap the Fast Break podcast. We're your hosts for the Hoosier Network, and we will see you next time, hopefully talking about the NCAA tournament, but we'll find out soon.